welcome to this episode of ERNs on Air, the quarterly bonus series of Rare on Air, the monthly podcast by Eurordis Rare Diseases Europe, where we take a deep dive into the operations of the European reference networks. I am your host, Rhiannon, and in this episode, my colleague Inés Hernando is joined by Barbara Brunmair of PaedCAN and Simone Louisse of ERN GuardHeart to discuss the methods their organisations have employed to get information and resources to patients quickly and effectively. They explore their personal experiences as members of the rare disease community and reflect on what they have taught them.
I'm Inés Hernando, and today we are going to discuss how patient representatives within the ERNs are effectively sharing information and resources generated by these networks with their local communities. So basically how they are managing to give back to their community. And we will also discuss with our guests today how they are helping to fast-track patients to access much-needed specialist advice. So to talk about this subject, we have invited today two very special guests who have been involved in the networks for quite some time now. So we have with us Barbara Brunmair and Simone Louisse. Welcome, both of you, and thanks for joining us. Barbara, so you work at CCI, so that's Childhood Cancer International. And you're also a project manager in PaedCAN, that's the network for rare pediatric cancers. And you consider yourself as a spokesperson of ERN PaedCAN ePAGs. And specifically, you're in charge of increasing outreach to the patient community. So could you explain to us a little bit what's your personal story and how do you end up with this role in PaedCAN?
Hello, Inés, and thank you for inviting me. Yes, so I have a professional background as a scientist, which is why I came later as a project manager to the coordinator of ERN PaedCAN, and I was working with her for some years. Together we coordinated the predecessor project of ERN PaedCAN, and we submitted the ERN PaedCAN proposal together when I was 7 months pregnant. So it was last minute, I would say, before I went to maternity leave. And then the submission went to the European Union. Meanwhile, when I was at home, the project was approved. I was doing some other stuff. So I was focusing on science communication, which is also a passion for me, to make people understand what is science, why do we need it. But after some years, I decided to go back to project management. But with this decision, I changed sides kind of, because I went from working with healthcare professionals to working with patient advocates, which is why I joined Childhood Cancer International Europe, which is an umbrella organization of pediatric cancer patient organizations throughout Europe.
Super. And I understand that the pediatric cancer patient community is quite well organized, but your role is really to increase the outreach to that community. So can you explain to us, why that is so important and why is that like the focus of your role?
Mm-hmm. So first, I want to say that I really like this dual role that I have, because I know both sides, and this gives me a little bit the possibility to mentor between both communities and to connect them more closely. And to explain why this is so important to us, I may briefly go back to the roots. So, which is that any type of childhood cancer is rare and it is life-threatening for our most vulnerable members of the society, which are our children. So all who have been confronted with this disease, they want to improve the outcome. And we have realized very early already that networking is an essential part of a successful treatment. And this led to our comparatively well-structured network today. And yes, we realized that we are more and more cited as a well-functioning example community. And it's true, we are well-structured, but we are still not exclusive, and we are still working on adding more and more patient and parent organizations in Europe. And we have still problems such as inequalities in childhood cancer survival rates, access to treatment, and so on and so on. If I may also add, one of our most pressing issues today is how to better connect national patient organizations with the respective national pediatric oncology units who are the official ERN PaedCAN contacts, because we realized that they are sitting in their countries, but there is still too little interaction to really benefit from each other. And we hope by connecting them better will make the benefits of the network easier and faster to access, in particular in countries with comparatively low survival rates.
And I imagine that you're explaining this also specifically because that would help to fast-track patients who need to access specialist advice that the ERN is offering.
Yes, exactly.
But that's really interesting what you're trying to do there, I think. Can you explain very briefly if there is any strategy behind it, or what are your next steps, plans for that?
Yeah, so we are still very often contacted by parents who come with complicated cases, and we realize that the local clinicians do not always know how to get into contact with the network. So we try to connect all the responsible people, so the parents, the local clinicians, as well as the ERN PaedCAN coordinators, to use a kind of a virtual tumor board. And this was very helpfully provided by the European Union. They call it clinical management system, but for us, it's kind of a virtual tumor board where the experts, pan-European experts, can discuss complicated cases and give the best possible treatment advice. But we realize, since the parents still come to us, that it's not so easy to get access to this system. It's still very complicated. It takes a lot of effort. You need to upload a lot of stuff. So still very complicated, also tightly regulated by data protection and so on and so on. And we're trying to make the tool better accessible to the patients, and especially in countries where they need it most.
Mm-mm. Okay, thank you for that, Barbara. So Simone, let me turn now to you. Simone Louisse, you are a patient representative in the network for rare and complex heart conditions. You're also Dutch, and you are brilliant as a volunteer, if I may say. And I would like just to ask you to tell us a little bit your story and how you got involved in GuardHeart, and why did you end up there?
Okay. Thank you, Inés, for having me. It's a pleasure. So I was born with a congenital heart disease, and I had 3 surgeries when I was a kid. Later on, I studied biology, neurobiology, so nothing to do with congenital heart diseases. And now I'm working in a very big marketing research company. But in 2017, 2018, I was like, okay, I really also want to do something more for myself and the patient organizations that we have in the Netherlands with regards to that. So I joined the small Dutch congenital heart disease organization, Heart for Research. And at the same time, I joined the ePAG community of GuardHeart through ERNs. So I'm in there since 2018. We had a slow start from our side, also because our congenital heart diseases were not part of the ERN at the time. In the meantime, they are. So we are really connecting with the clinicians and trying to make life better for our patients. But over the last few years, we've already done a lot by just being part of the ePAG group and being part of the ERN in understanding better how care is organized in Europe, also in Netherlands, and how we can help our patients in the best way.
Thank you for sharing that, Simone. So you were mentioning something that is a reality for, I would say, most of the patient advocates involved in the ERNs, which is that when you have your regular job, you are also volunteering your national patient organization, and on top of that, you are volunteering for the European Reference Network. So sometimes we get the testimonies of patient advocates that have problems persuading their national patient organization about the value of investing their time at European level and collaborating with the ERN, etc. So I'd like to ask you, Simone, what have you done? I know that you've been working with Rare Disease National Alliance in the Netherlands, but I wanted to ask you how you are organizing yourself to give back to your community. How are you making sure that whatever happens in the ERN benefits your community back home and that you are able to actually help them, as you were explaining to us before?
Yeah, so sometimes it is not so easy to clarify that, to be clear. So one thing I think that is really helpful by being part of the ERN is that you have access to a lot of clinicians, and also because you have access to those clinicians and you get a lot more information about new procedures, new ways of thinking, new guidelines, how things are planned for the future. So that's you can then share with your community. But also in the ERNs, there is an opportunity to organize patient meetings in your country, and the ERN supports you, and also the clinicians of the ERN are in many cases part of those patient meetings. So that for me is also a very, very great initiative that the ERNs are doing. And it's really also bringing the patients and the clinicians together in a not clinical setting, which is always good for collaboration and understanding of each other.
I'm not sure how many ERNs are actually doing those kind of national meetings, but I know GuardHeart is doing them since the beginning. Maybe, Barbara, could you explain to us if CCI is doing anything kind of more systematically to share the information and the resources at national level that are being generated or curated by PaedCAN ERN?
So all our members receive regular updates on all our projects which we are involved in. We have newsletters, we have training things that we can offer. We have webinars. In particular, we have developed a webinar series that was specifically dedicated to the ERN to inform all the members, the national members, about what the ERNs are, how to approach and how to use them.
And Simone, I know that your work with the Rare Disease National Alliance in the Netherlands is also about disseminating and sharing information more systematically with your community. You don't have a big federation behind, etc. So you're doing that at national level. And I was wondering if you've seen any results already, and how's that going?
Yeah, so what we did with the National Alliance, we worked with 3 ERNs, so not just GuardHeart, to set up community pages for each of the ERNs, where we have invited all the known Dutch patient organizations. So for GuardHeart, all the heart disease organizations, and for the other 2, their specific organizations. So everybody can post their events there, and we can share information when there is a new newsletter also from the ERN, for example. We can share it there. Anything new, anything that comes out of the ERN can share there, but also more generic topics from the National Alliance are on there. And they have also worked on creating a full new website for the National Alliance, where all the ERNs are having their own page with their own, translated in Dutch, with their own information on what the ERNs are, who the contact persons are from the ERNs, who are the coordinating team, and so on. So everybody who is going to the National Alliance website will also be able to find that all those pages for all the ERNs.
Now I have Barbara asking me to take the floor. Go ahead, please. Yes.
I just wanted to add one more information that I find very important. We have an annual meeting, which is the CCI Europe Congress, where all our members are invited. And this always is together with the Congress for the Society of Pediatric Oncology Europe, so SIOP Europe, and we meet together, healthcare professionals and patient organizations and advocates, and we really try to interconnect. It's not perfect. We still discuss every year after the big meeting that we did not intermingle enough, and maybe some sessions were not well enough visited, but it's still a very good opportunity to get into contact with the professionals and the patient advocates to discuss urgent problems and find solutions.
Okay, so thank you both. We need to wrap up. Do you have any maybe a specific or some piece of advice for any of our volunteers, ePAG advocates that would like to do something more to give back to their community? Is there anything you would like to share with them?
Well, I think it's following up from what Barbara also said, right? The most important is to be able to have the connection between the clinicians and the patient organizations, and not just when you are as a patient in the hospital with your own clinician, but at a higher level. And I think that you are having, or Barbara was saying she has a annual meeting. We don't have that in the same way, but we have some specific meetings also in Netherlands on cardiology yearly, where there's also patients themselves are invited to the first day, and there also to connect with the clinicians at a different level than when you're just in the hospital. So I think the advice would really be to try and see if there is any of those meetings where there is a combination of patients and clinicians, usually organized by the hospitals, but still where you can join and connect together.
Anything on your side, Barbara, or?
Yes, I can say for sure that none of the ERN PaedCAN ePAGs would ever drop out voluntarily, except that they are forced to retire in the end, because we all consider that the ERNs are a super important initiative for our patients. It's truly life-saving, and it can give new, sometimes last hope to our patients. So which is why we will stay, and we will keep together, and we will try to keep this running as long as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And thank you for ending with that positive note. So I hope that our listeners can get some inspiration, some ideas on how they can give back to their community and how they can share and spread the information. And I also hope that the joint action on integration that will start hopefully next year will help all of us to make this happen and to reach out to more patients, families, and people living with a rare disease. So that's all for today's episode. A big thank you to both of you, Barbara and Simone. You've been stars, and thank you for sharing your experience, your stories with us. And thank you to our listeners for listening to ERNs on Air. Bye.
You have been listening to an episode of ERNs on Air, the quarterly bonus series from Rare on Air, the monthly podcast by Eurodis Rare Diseases Europe. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, you can tune in once a month for our regularly scheduled episodes of Rare on Air, shining a light on the experiences, challenges, and successes of the rare disease community. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If there is a topic you would like us to discuss, you can contact us at rareonair@eurodis.org. We look forward to hearing from you.